I can't believe that Diego Luna's not on the team. And I know that there was he missed a camp prior to, and there might have been some talk or disappointment between the coaching staff and him throughout the lead up into this decision. And I think they asked him to be an alternate from what I understand. And he said, no, he kind of said, I don't want to be an alternate either. And then he goes out and has a 1-goal, 3-assist game against Atlanta United this past weekend for RSL. So fair play to him. Only 20 years old, getting after it and making things happen. I love his player profile, and I think he's a contrast to some of the other players that are not only on this roster, but just in terms of our player pool in general. And I don't know how big of a conversation we want to have about the kind of the lost art of we're not really developing number 10s anymore, the traditional number 10s. And I think he falls into that space
or what?
What's that?
Should I call you Jimmy Bielsa now? We're not creating enough number 10s in the United States.
Well, we could say we're not creating enough number 9s either, which is another area of concern for me with regard to this roster, because we only have Duncan McGuire and that's it. So I think that Paredes can be someone that can give you some speed on out wide, but in terms of the middle of the midfield, I agree with you that we're lacking some pace. I guess if I'm Marko Mitrovic, and Tones, I'll want you to jump in here about this. You're basically like, how are these 3 games going to play out? And who am I going to trust? Now, Georgi Mihailovic has been excellent for Colorado Rapids this season, 10 goals, 6 assists, and looks like he's regained the confidence that he lost after he went over to Holland and it wasn't working as well for him and wasn't being trusted maybe in the same way. Comes back in and now he's the guy, and it's awesome. It's fun to see him play with confidence, and I hope that continues into the Olympics. But if you feel like he's going to be your guy that's going to be that final, making the final pass or spraying the ball out wide, and Tessman and Busio can make those passes too. But if you're trusting Mihailovic in between the gaps and you don't think you're going to have room for Diego Luna, even though I think it's inexplicable that he's not in the team, if that's how they're seeing how these 3 games are going to play out, then.
So you're saying Georgi Mihailovic, because he's young, he should be playing every single minute. 90 minutes,
I'm just saying that's
match.
what I think Marko Mitrovic is doing as coach. Like, I think he's reverse engineering. How do I think these 3 games are going to play out? Obviously, how we approach France is going to be much different than how we approach New Zealand 3 days later. By the way, what's also crazy about this roster, we have 2 goalkeepers. So you have 16 field players. We got 3 games in a week. And how you manage those minutes is going to be crazy. I mean, you fully expect everybody on the roster to play, which is another reason why I think if Mihailovic does go down, he's got some injury concerns over the years. Diego Luna would have been a nice fit. But Tones, your thoughts on this part of the conversation?
Yeah, so with the Luna part, whether it was Diego Luna or Esmir Barakovic up in New England, that special kind of different player isn't in this group, right? We don't have that. I'll call him number 10, right? They both play. One plays a little bit further on the left. Barakovic has been playing a little bit further on the right, although Caleb Porter has used him as a 10 in the 4-2-3-1 over the last couple of weeks. So he's kind of taken that role out. So my concerns with the group are, as you guys were talking about, midfield. It looks like we're going to have to play with 2. The speed of this group, I wouldn't call it a fast team. I wouldn't call it a slow team. But I don't know how we're going to press if that's how Marko Mitrovic wants to play. And then the backup number 9, you mentioned it, Duncan McGuire. He's the 9. Who's the backup number 9 in here? If something happens to him, I don't see another. The one thing with 18s, I think, if you look at like a Nathan Harriel, he's played all 4 of the. Actually, he's played 5 back positions in Philadelphia. He's played as a left wing back with 3 central defenders. He's played in all 3 of those. Of course, he's a right-sided player. So you can look and go, okay, well, I got a guy that's versatile. So if I need to make a change, I can do that. With Robinson and Zimmerman, we know their positions. We know how they play, where they play. In the midfield, there's not a lot of versatility. Tessman and Busio, I think, will be the 2 holding midfielders with Mihailovic in front of them. If that's how he wants to play, Marco, can Busio play a little bit higher? Yeah, but it's not his position. It's not where he feels most comfortable. And then again, up top, we've got some good wing play from this group, but my concern, number 9. So is he managing the tournament? I suppose you mentioned the games. They come on the 24th against France, 27th against Guinea, or is it Guinea? And 30th against New Zealand. So you're right, Jimmy. 7 days, 3 games. Everybody's going to have to be involved in this thing.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, and we'll get into the overage players here as well is we don't know all the conversations that were happening behind the scenes. We don't know which players that wanted to play. I'm sure there were a lot of players that wanted to play.
No, I could tell you, Jimmy, that Gio Reyna wanted to play, and Dortmund didn't release him. I can tell you that Pepe and Tillman wanted to play. Ernie did not release them from PSV.
Then those are probably three of
Yunus
many.
Musa, not released. So if you're Yunus Musa on top of that, if you have a new manager and Fonseca coming to the club,
yeah, right.
These are the times where you can't miss a preseason. And there are situations where you're coming into a team and you know the coach knows you. You're not going to really move up or down. Maybe you're already a starter. You can miss preseason. It's not like you're sitting at home. You're playing games, so you're still going to come in fit. But there are times where you have a new manager. You have to prove to that new manager that you can be used, or he can rely on you, or that you got to show your quality throughout the preseason, and you can't win back that time. So it's so valuable that you need to stay for that preseason rather than playing the Olympics.
Yeah, so I guess that, and this isn't isolated to us. I know that Thierry Henry was having these same issues with France. We'll get into France's roster in a bit because even despite his issues, he's still stacked, and his overage players are pretty legit. I want to talk about ours, though. We knew that coming into this, we needed some center backs, and we got two very experienced ones that have a nice rapport, played a lot of games together with the full team, and Walker Zimmerman and Miles Robinson. Miles Robinson didn't play in the Copa America, so I don't know how he was performing, but it seemed like Greg had already made his decision throughout that tournament to kind of ride or die, including the two friendlies before Copa America, that he had his back four pretty much set. And then you have Djordje Mihailovic, who I'm not disappointed that he's there. I guess I'm just disappointed that Diego Luna, who has a similar profile, got excluded in this one. But I guess where I think we're really thin, and Tony mentioned it too, is at the number 9 spot. So Brandon Vasquez, Haji Wright, Ricardo Pepi. That is
not released. Haji Wright not released either.
Yeah, I think all three of those guys not released. Yeah. And that gives me some concern because, and as our resident number 9, Chuck, you could throw somebody up there to be a false 9. You could maybe put a Paxton Aronson up there if we wanted to press crazy, and then he could drop in and try to create numerical advantages in midfield. But then you're going to have to rely on your wingers to really get involved and create that depth to be able to be a threat to get in behind. I actually think we got some speed out on the wings. Griffin Yao can get in behind. So you got Kevin Paredes who can get in behind. If Caleb Whaley plays a little higher, he can get in behind. But to your point, Tones, it seems like we have quite a few outside backs, right? Because Kevin Paredes can play the left back spot. And then you have Nathan Ariel who can play either side. And then you have John Tolkien. And it just feels like, why couldn't we have sacrificed maybe one of those left backs to bring in another threat? But then that kind of gets me back to the part of the conversation with maybe just guys weren't available or their clubs wouldn't release them. And so this is the best that we could do with what we have.
Yeah, you just wonder what those conversations were behind the scenes, right? And on the flip side of players not being available, you look at Philadelphia Union allowing their Jack McGlynn to go. Look at FC Cincinnati with Pat Noonan, right? I had a conversation with Pat, I think it was 2 weeks ago. It might have been 3 weeks ago, talking about Miles Robinson, and he said, U.S. Soccer has to do something because I'm going to miss a center back for 8 weeks. And he said, I'm just not in a position in my head to not allow a guy to have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So I've committed to, in a bad time, by the way, with no Matt Miazga, then Hagelin goes down, and now you're struggling for center backs, and you let your number 1 or number 2 center back, whatever you want to call him in your team, you let him go for 8 weeks. And he was ticked off at U.S. Soccer because he essentially was saying, and I'm reading between the lines, like, why is my player going to Copa America when you know he's not going to play, and then you want to take him to the Olympics? But he said, I'm just not going to do that to kids. So credit to him for sticking to his conviction and giving Miles Robinson the opportunity to go and do something that he's never going to be able to do again in week, right? So there's the flip side of the story, but all of these omissions, I just wonder what those conversations were. And I don't know, did you say Brandon Vasquez was also not released? Is that what we know? Or is he just completely out of any conversation with anything to do with U.S. Soccer? Because I don't, maybe I'm missing something, but the fact that he's only gotten so many chances with the national team, I would have thought this would have been a big one. Now, he might not have been released, but I never heard his name in the conversation.
Yeah, I don't know about him, and you see also Cade Cowell's not there. So was he not released or was he not selected? I would assume he just wasn't released, given how he would be the only speed kind of option that the U.S. has. And I go back to 2008 Olympics with my group. We had Freddie Adu, we had Josie Altidore, we had myself, and we still brought Brian McBride. So we had 4 strikers. They have one, just one.
I know. Which
is crazy to me. Nuts. That's nuts. So it's a little bit of a tough situation when you're looking at this roster, because we talked about it this morning on Morning Footy, of players that you're looking forward to seeing it. And for me, it's Kevin Paredes, because he has done well in some moments in the Bundesliga. He's got the pace. So typically playing left back or left wing back or left mid, and now he's going to be tasked with playing left wing for this group, and he's got to be consistent.